Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today, we have another great guest. As our ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, I'll be sharing ideas and insights and best practices for building relationships and excelling at business networking. Occasionally, however, I will be interviewing subject matter experts, people who know more than I do about networking, have been doing it a long time. These are authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists, and they're going to share what they know. We'll kick around some thoughts and ideas. Today, I have on here Ron Sukenick. Ron is a professional. He's a full-time professional speaker and best-selling author on topics of LinkedIn, business relationship strategies, business networking. He's a Vietnam vet, a proud Vietnam vet. Thank you for your service. He's in the Army Reserves, retired. And he's one of 25 national speakers for the Office of Secretary of Defense in their Yellow Ribbon program. Ron, welcome.
Wow, what a great introduction, Frank. I can hardly wait to hear what I've got to say. Hey, Frank, let me at least, if I can begin with just acknowledging you for the work that you do, Frank. Look, it's been a tough year for a lot of people. We know going through the pandemic. But for you to have the courage to build a networking program where people can come together and build relationships and communicate to those people daily and make that transition and make that leap for them, that's admirable. So it takes courage, and I'm sure you're a hero to many people, and I just wanted to say that. That's all. It was a nice thing to say, and I know you're very humble, but thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you, and your contribution as well, because I know you've had a big hand in certainly the Gold Circle realm, and I'm not opposed to talking about other organizations. I know you had a big hand in the BNI circles, and you're a name that. Well, as I mentioned before we hit record, it came up a couple times in conversations today, totally independent of us talking today. So you're out there and you're really visible.
You talk about visibility, Frank. The bottom line for more success is you got to be seen, you got to be heard, you got to be visible. But look, let me begin by telling everybody that. If I think about all the success I've ever had, Frank, it's always been through the help of people.
Yeah.
I started really networking in the 1960s. Now, some people listening to this may not have been born in the 60s. And in fact, I was in South Vietnam in the 60s as well. So I may not look that old, but I was there. But I will tell you that we're better together, Frank. We're better together. I got that. I recognized that really early. So been around the world of business networking a lot. I understand so much about what I need to do. And I'll tell you, and I think I shared this with you, whenever I get to a new year, Frank, like when it was 2020, if you recall, about 5 months ago, whatever it was, and I was getting ready to jump into 2021, I said to myself, what can I do to strengthen the relationships I have with people I network with? And I just want to talk directly to your audience. If you're listening to this podcast and you're networking with people, I just want you to accept that whatever you've done to satisfy them last year is really not going to be enough to satisfy them this year. Frank, I think maybe you might agree with me. So to me, I always look back and I say, what can I do? And I came up with about 14 different tips, which kind of helped me and maybe helps others. And the one big tip, Frank, that I began with was investing time.
Yeah.
If you want to build relationships with your spouse, your pets, your children, the people you network with, your referral partners, your strategic, I don't care who it is, you have to invest time. And the more we know about each other, the more likely it is we're going to help one another. And if we help one another, we're all going to be better as a result, Frank. And I know I'm talking to the choir because you believe so strongly in that. But that's my first tip. That's my first tip.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. So often people come to me and they're looking for that shortcut. Yeah, I know that's what you've done. Is there a better way to do it? And it's like there really isn't. Zoom, Zoom is allowing us, who you're in Indianapolis, I'm in Columbus, we're 3 hours apart, roughly speaking, having a conversation as if we're in the room together. And that's technology. Technology is allowing that, but we still have to invest the time to get to know one another. So totally agree with you.
Not even a question. And you actually talked about having two independent conversations today and people knowing me. Well, I've been out there for so long meeting, I had a radio show. I used to do the biggest business conferences in the state of Indiana. I connected really well with a lot of people. I have a way of staying in touch with people. And, the bottom line, let me give everybody another tip. The bottom line for more success in 2021, even though we're in June of 21,
right?
Visibility. You have to be seen. You have to be heard. So you got to stay out there. You got to be on social platforms. You got to release content. You got to show up at your meetings. If you're in a networking group, right, which obviously if you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you are, you got to show up. And you know what it always is? I always remember in the early days, Frank, people used to say, well, what did I miss? Did I miss anything if they didn't show up? I said, no. Well, yeah, you did. The only thing you missed was the chance to give to somebody, to share ideas and information and resources with people. That's what you missed, because the gift is clearly in the giving. So you don't go to these meetings with what I can get. You go to these meetings with this mindset of what I can give, right?
Yeah, you miss opportunities if you're not there. That one thing that somebody says that you could change their world because that just triggered a thought in your head.
Yeah. And for so long, for a long time when I was growing up in the world of networking, I'd always go out and try to get people interested in me. Well, guess what? I figured it out, Frank, years ago. Instead of people are not interested in me. Let's face it. Networking in general is awkward. It is hit and miss. It's situational, always lacks support, and it's never about us. When you meet people, Frank, at a networking event, they're more interested in who? Themselves. So what a great strategy. So I said to myself, my God, I got to take more of an interest in them. I got to become the most interested person in the room. I'm not going to try to get people interested. I know I'm interesting. I know everybody would love to know me and would love my help and my support. And guess what? I connect every day, every week, every month. And I just love it. If I get sick, Frank, I go through withdrawals. I can't stand it that I can't get out and meet people. You can imagine what this pandemic's been about. And going face to face and not going face to face, right? I mean, think about that. So create unparalleled visibility. Do your blogging, do your podcasts, release stuff and content on all these. What do you got? You got LinkedIn, you got TikTok, you got Clubhouse, you got Twitter, you got your networking program or group that you're involved in or should be involved in. But I'll tell you another tip, if I can throw out a couple of more if you have the time. Go after the relationship, not the sale. People, I'm a LinkedIn coach. You may be able to tell that in my background here. But, a lot of people underestimate and don't really understand how to embrace the power of LinkedIn. So I teach them how to do that. But social selling is so different. But to me, I'm always going after the relationship. I always want to be a resource for people. And, the selling, look, everybody loves to buy. Nobody likes to be sold. And I want to let everybody know that if you're on LinkedIn, which I'm sure you are, it's a free platform. Keep this in mind, everybody. If somebody wants to sell you something, Don't get offended. It's a networking platform. Everybody wants to sell something. What does Frank want, right? Frank wants more and more people to show up at all his meetings, right? Frank wants to expand his network. Frank wants to find people in areas that are interested. There's 35 states that he doesn't even have to register in, that he wants people to open up his clubs. Why? Because they make a difference. So don't get offended if Frank wants to talk to you about that, because I think that's what Frank's about. I'll tell you a pet peeve I've got, Frank. I know you probably have the same. You got to follow up with people.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Well,
how many people, Frank, don't follow up?
I used to be astonished by it. I mean, I still am astonished by it or bothered by it. But I look at it this way. It just makes it easier for the people who do follow up, because if you follow up, you really stand out.
Stand out? Oh my God. It's a mind blow. You're right on. Think about it, Frank. Listen, you and I look like nice, friendly people. We go to a networking event. We meet 10 or 15 interesting people. What's the what percentage, if you met 15 people at a networking event, Frank, how many of them are going to send you an email or make a phone call and say, hey, it was nice meeting you at the local Chamber of Commerce? And I'll bet you're going to tell me very few people do that.
Well, you know what
go ahead.
To interject, I have been at events with other, what I'll call networking thought leaders, Uber leaders, people who've written books and are, supposedly the gurus, and they don't follow up.
Yeah. You know why they don't follow up? For a few reasons. Number one, they don't see any value in you because they it's like there's nothing that you have that they want to buy. So they don't they don't know. They don't know I have almost 12,000 contacts on LinkedIn. Big deal. They don't know that I met 10,000 people a year for 7 straight years. They don't know that I have an ability to make almost anything happen anywhere in the world. And I can do it. Give me about a week to 10 days. I can do it. Okay. They don't know that. But so they undervalue us. But what they're really going after, Frank, is the sale. You see, that's the thing.
Yep.
If they're going after the relationship, I mean, think about you and I. We met, we talked. I reached out to you because I said, why wouldn't I want to know a guy like Frank? I mean, I like what he's doing. It's not like I'm in a competing network, but he's doing great things. Why shouldn't I reach out? And I did. And if you can get up to 6 interactions with anybody, it's likely you have a good beginning for a relationship that can never end. So what's the tip? The tip that I'd like to give everybody, Frank: increase your frequency of interaction. Increase your frequency of interaction. If you go to a networking meeting, and do you allow people to come there more than twice to your meetings, Frank?
Well, technically they're not supposed to, but people do. We certainly invite people to visit and certainly come to our area events that are online or in person.
So you let them come.
Sure.
But guess what? If some people, they go to an event or they go to a networking meeting and they go once, they go twice, they never show back up. But what they don't understand is that if they can get up to 6 interactions, it's more likely they'd have the beginning for a relationship that never ends. So the key is to increase frequency of interaction. Repetition builds your reputation. And increased interaction gives us increased cooperation with people.
Yeah, or top of mind. Yeah, I mean,
so that's why I think networking groups have been so great for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in one forever. Why would I ever want to leave? So,
totally agree.
I'm talking to the choir. But by the way, I think I made the comment a little bit earlier. A great tip is just become the most interested person in the room. Don't worry. Look, somebody, what people say? If you just listen when you speak, you learn what you know. When you listen, you learn what other people know. And if you're not a great listener, you eventually get surrounded by people that have nothing to say to you. Think about that. So to me, becoming a great listener, and by the way, just for the purpose of this audience that's listening to this, Ask yourself this question, everybody. When was the last time somebody said to you, thanks for taking the time to listen? Has it been a while? If you're part of a networking group and you think that this person that gets up every week and tells you who they are and what they're about and what's a good referral for you, if you think you're hearing, they say the same thing all the time and you can't hear it differently, you're making a mistake. You got to dig deep. In fact, I always tell people, like you probably do, Frank, don't say the same thing every week. Give case studies, give examples,
Yep.
share some insights. But I'll tell you, another tip that I really love that I learned from Michael Gerber. You probably know Michael Gerber from eMyth fame.
Yep.
Yeah, I worked with Michael for 3 years. Michael doesn't like networking, by the way. He told me that. We had dinner in Santa Rosa one time and drinking wine, and he says, look, Ron, I'm not like you. I don't like people. Even though he gets $50,000 to speak.
Right.
He's in his 80s now. He wrote the foreword to my second book. But the key is don't manage people, manage the system. Systems are predictable and reliable. Every networking organization has an agenda. Follow the system. Do what successful networkers do. Visit them at their office. Do one-to-ones. And if you did it last year and you think you understand where they are this year, that's another mistake.
Yeah.
Meet with them again. Tell them what's new. So, to me, I listen a lot. I embrace the power of LinkedIn. It was a big seller for me. I love helping people with LinkedIn. And I'll tell you, another tip that's always seems to work for me is I always share my referral club experiences. And I'm really talking to everybody that's listening, that's part of any referral club. Share that experience. Share that experience. My God, there's two kinds of people, Frank. You know that. The ones that tell the story and the people that will buy into it. And always connect the dots. I love connecting the dots. The dots are, people appreciate that so much.
Well, it's interesting. That ties into something else you say or have said is when you listen for the dots, right? Don't listen for what you're going to say next. Listen for, okay, who can I connect them to that they can help or can help them?
Yeah. That's a good mindset if you have that kind of a giver's mindset. But thinking is a high level activity, continuous thought. The question I always ask people is, do you get people thinking? And I always allow them to go first. I always let people tell their entire story first. They do all the talking. And it gives me the competitive advantage on how I can help them because I'm going after the relationship. The sale will happen. Selling always happens when people, because they love to buy. They just don't want to be sold.
Right.
But I'll tell you, what a great thing, this podcast that you're doing and getting the information out there. And I love bringing people together. I make so many connections for people. And by the way, can I give one helpful tip on LinkedIn?
Yeah, please.
Which everybody may know. By the way, you can only do this with people you're directly connected to. There are 3 levels of connection. But if I get Frank's profile in front of me, because I'm connected to Frank, and if Frank, he has the ability to search my database, he can say, hey, I want to meet John Jones, and he can, of course, send me a message. I have the ability to go to the More button, M-O-R-E, More button, to the right, and I can take Frank's profile, and I can send his profile to whoever he wants to meet. Did you know that, Frank?
I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah. And if somebody's listening, you don't know that. Did you ever try to reach anybody by phone and they say, hey, call me. But guess what? They never return the call. Don't you hate that, Frank?
All
Why
the
would
time.
they not return the call? But guess what? When I send your profile to somebody and say, hey, John, hope all is well. By the way, here's my friend Frank. who felt he had an idea that would be of a tremendous value for your business, please give him the courtesy of a call. Here's what you and I know, Frank. Relationships do open doors. Now, do they always make sales? No. But they open doors.
Yeah. Well,
and I'll tell you, I'm sorry, go ahead, Frank.
No, I was going to say eventually those things lead to sales. It might not be immediate, but and maybe not to that person, but I don't know how many times I've talked to somebody and they're not in the market for what I do, but they know somebody who is. And so,
yeah, and they discount you. They discount you. I had a guy walk up to me at a networking meeting years ago, and he was throwing up all over me, Frank. You know that's a networking term. They're throwing up on me. He's just talking. He was with Melaleuca. He was with Amway. He was with this Trout. He was a multi-level marketing guy, and I'm just listening, and he's just throwing up and going, and he's for 5 minutes, and then listen to this, Frank. He says to me, do you know the person that's running the Campus Life Committee at Conseco? Now, Conseco's about a 5,000 people company.
Yeah.
And he knows nothing about me. So I told him, I acted like I didn't know anybody at Conseco. So you know what he said to me? He says, "Hey, Ron, thank you so much. What a pleasure to meet you." And he left. Now think about it, Frank. What did he get from that experience? Now, I know you know this, so don't answer it. But for everybody else, ask yourself the question, what did he get from that experience? And here's your answer. Don't say nothing, because what he got was a joyful experience of himself. That's the key, Frank. We got to give people joyful experiences of themselves. And by the way, let me just tell you something. You know who ran the Campus Life Committee at Conseco?
Probably you.
No, my wife.
Oh, geez. Okay.
My wife. He was so close, Frank. All he had to do was what? Take a little bit of an interest in who I was.
Right.
But you know something? People miss that. And opportunities are never lost. They just get picked up by other people, don't they?
Yeah. I was going to say, let's shift gears here in the closing minutes, but I want you to have the opportunity to talk about your LinkedIn coaching business and the types of things you do and how people out there could help you.
Wow. A few ways. So by the way, if people go to ronsukenick.com, you may see that on my Zoom thing here. You'll learn that I'm a full-time speaker. I've got books that I've published or were published. And then I do LinkedIn coaching. So if anybody is listening and for some reason they don't understand the power, they're not sure why they're on LinkedIn, they're not optimized, they're not relevant, maybe you don't even have a connection strategy, and maybe, look, you want to go from high tech to high touch, from LinkedIn to a Zoom call or LinkedIn. If you're not making money on LinkedIn, hey, send me an email, rs@ronsukenick.com, rs@ronsukenick.com. And by the way, I want to do something special, Frank. If they say that, now what's the name of this podcast again?
Networking RX.
Oh, Networking RX. Sounds like the doctor of networking. Okay,
yeah, there
good.
You go.
If anybody calls me and says, Ron, I'm interested in your coaching, and you mentioned that you heard about it on Frank's Networking RX program, I don't know. How about if I take $100? I'm going to take $100 and I'm going to do one of two things, Frank. I'm going to donate $100. I only charge $359 for 2 90-minute calls, and I'll blow their mind. But I'll either take that $100 and make a donation to their favorite cause, or we'll just take $100 off the price. Whatever they choose.
Okay.
And I'll bet you more people will say, take it off the price. Take it off the price.
You're probably
so that's
right.
How people reach me. And I support veterans. I'm retired from the military. And by the way, if I can help anybody, I'm based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. And if anybody that's listening needs to connect in Indianapolis, don't even question whether I can connect you anywhere pretty much in the world. But let's just say LinkedIn. No, let's just say Indianapolis, Indiana. Why not? But Frank, what a treat to be with you. You're always smiling. And again, I started out this whole podcast by acknowledging you for the work that you're doing. And I'm not doing that just to make you feel good, because I already know you feel good. That's what you get when you do what you do. And so I just acknowledge you and I thank you for that. And maybe what I need to do is, I don't know, I ought to hang out with those AmSpirit people.
You're always welcome. You're always welcome.
Yeah, I'd love to. But what a treat to be with you. I hope you found these hints helpful. And if you would give me a copy of this when it gets released, I'll put it on my my website. And by the way, I do want to point out, I do have a lot of podcasts on my website and great articles and some of the best social selling people in the world that I've interviewed. Just like you, Frank. You've interviewed a lot of successful.
Yep.
And by the way, if I look familiar to you, Frank, you're old enough, I think. I did win the dating game on national television in May of 1980. I won a trip to Waikiki with a beautiful actress. And you want to know something, Frank?
Yeah.
The reason why she was on the show, she was an aspiring actress. And, she wanted to be seen on national television. So if everybody remembers, bottom line for success is you got to be seen, you got to be heard. And I don't know that she ever made it. And I didn't go on to get a date, Frank. That my wife's friend was the production guy.
Okay.
He just thought I was fast and funny. That's all. So I got on it and I won it, but I didn't go to Waikiki with a beautiful actress. She wasn't interested, and I was getting ready to marry this woman that I'm still married to after 40 years.
It's a great story. I appreciate your time here today.
Hey, thanks so much, Frank. You be good. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody. Nice to be with you all.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.